When Pacific Rim first hit theaters, it redefined the action monster genre. Over time, it's come to be recognized as one of the biggest, boldest, and most ambitious action monster movies ever produced, carving out a legacy that still electrifies fans today. What made it so unforgettable beyond the Jaegers or the Kaiju was the perspective. Guillermo del Toro didn't want you to simply watch giant robots fight giant monsters. He wanted you to feel it. Pacific Rim pulls you into the cockpit, into the streets, and into the chaos from the viewpoints of the Jaegers, the Kaiju, and the humans caught between them. The result is a level of immersion that makes you feel like you're inside the movie itself. And that immersion comes from one thing: detail. Every camera shake when a Jaeger walks, every ripple on a Kaiju's skin, every neon-soaked raindrop in Hong Kong, it's all crafted to pump adrenaline straight into the audience. It's the kind of detail that sticks with you long after the credits roll. Additionally, the characters brought real weight to the story. From Charlie Hunnam's grounded determination to Idris Elba's commanding presence, every character had a distinct personality and a meaningful role in the events that unfold, showcasing how they were people with histories, conflicts, and emotional stakes. In this video, we're diving deep into the world of Pacific Rim, exploring the fascinating behind-the-scenes details, clever design choices, and fun facts that make the movie even more impressive once you know the full story. So, without further ado, let's dive in. The creative team went all in on world building by designing around 100 different kaiju monsters and 100 Jaeger robots, even though only a small number of them actually made it into the final movie. The idea was to explore a huge range of shapes, abilities, and personalities for both the creatures and the machines, almost like building an entire ecosystem and military program behind the scenes. To narrow things down, the filmmakers held weekly votes where everyone, from artists to directors, picked their favorites. The designs that got the most support moved forward, while others stayed on the cutting room floor. This process helped the team discover the most striking, memorable designs while still having fun, experimenting with a massive pool of ideas. The scene where Gypsy Danger's fist punches through an office building was created using an impressively detailed miniature rather than a full CGI environment. The crew built tiny office cubicles and furniture, and many of these pieces were made with 3D printers so they could quickly produce lots of small, precise parts. They even lit the miniature with real scaled-down lighting so it would look natural on camera. After the miniature set was fully assembled, the team shoved a large green mandrel, a kind of rod, straight through it to mimic the path of the Jaeger's punch. Later, in post-production, that green rod was digitally replaced with Gypsy's massive metal fist, creating a realistic and satisfying destruction shot. In an early version of the script, writer Travis Beacham imagined a much stronger language barrier between Mako and Rowley. For most of the story, the two characters would speak entirely different languages, unable to fully understand each other until they formed their neural connection as co-pilots. Once they drifted together, they would gradually start to comprehend one another, and by the end of the film, each would hear the other speaking in their own native language, a symbolic way of showing how deeply linked they had become. This idea was eventually dropped, but a small trace of it remains in the final movie. In the moment when Raleigh speaks to Mako in Japanese, and she reacts with surprise because she didn't expect him to know her language. Screenwriter Travis Beacham came up with the idea for Pacific Rim during a foggy morning walk along the California coast, when the shape of a pier looked to him like a giant creature rising out of the ocean. That simple visual sparked the image of an enormous robot standing on the shore, ready to fight it, which eventually grew into the movie's entire concept of Jaegers battling kaiju. Beyond the film itself, Beacham also wrote the graphic novel Pacific Rim Tales from Year Zero, which was released alongside the movie. This companion story acts as a prologue set 12 years before the film's events, showing how the world first reacted to the kaiju attacks and how the Jaeger program began, giving fans a deeper look into the history behind the movie's universe. The filmmakers built a full-size version of the Jaeger cockpit, called the Con Pod, on a soundstage at Pinewood Studios in Toronto, and it was an enormous piece of machinery. The set weighed around 20 tons and reached nearly 4 stories tall, making it feel as massive as the robots in the movie. It sat on a huge hydraulic gimbal that could shake, tilt, drop, and rock the entire structure so the actors would look like they were really inside a moving giant robot. They also created a smaller cockpit on a smaller gimbal to allow for different kinds of motion during filming. The VFX team later used footage from these practical sets as reference when animating the Jaegers, helping the digital movements feel grounded and realistic. To match each robot's unique style, the crew redressed the cockpit set multiple times so the interior looked different depending on which Jaeger was being piloted. The kaiju roars were created from many layers of different animal noises, roars, growls, and other vocalizations, which the sound team filtered, sped up, slowed down, and blended together to make them feel massive and otherworldly. But the filmmakers didn't want the kaiju to sound like mindless beasts, so supervising sound editor Scott Martin Gershon and director Guillermo del Toro added bits of their own voices. By mixing in these human elements, they gave the creatures a hint of emotion and intelligence, making the roars feel more like the cries of alien giants, with purpose rather than simple monster noises. Striker Eureka was originally planned to be the main hero Jaeger of the movie, the one that would represent the film's central story and pilots. However, director Guillermo del Toro changed course after looking closely at its design. He felt Striker Eureka looked too cold and arrogant, almost like a machine that was overly perfect and unapproachable. Because he wanted the hero robot to feel more relatable, worn, and full of personality, he shifted that role to Gypsy Danger instead. This choice helped give the film a more grounded emotional center, with a Jaeger that looked like it had history and heart rather than a flawless elite machine. Interestingly, Gypsy Danger was named after the de Havilland Gypsy aircraft engine. This was intended as a nostalgic nod to the World War II era, which was a major influence in the design of the robot. This connection to World War II influences can also be seen in Gypsy Danger's bold colors, sturdy design, and almost retro industrial style, making it feel like a symbol of bravery from a different time. In Hungary, the movie's trailers avoided saying the name Gypsy Danger because the word gypsy is considered offensive to the Roma, a large ethnic group in the country, and the studio didn't want to cause misunderstanding or disrespect. Interestingly, the name is still spoken in the Hungarian dubbed version of the film, but it's kept in English rather than translated, which helps distance it from the local meaning. The filmmakers obviously never intended the name to refer to people at all. As I just mentioned, Gypsy Danger was named after the de Havilland Gypsy aircraft engine, as a nostalgic nod to old aviation history. Dr. Newt mentions that the kaiju might have a secondary brain, comparing them to dinosaurs, a reference to an old scientific idea that was still being taught in the 1990s. At the time, some paleontologists believed certain dinosaurs, like the Stegosaurus, had a second brain-like organ near their hips because their actual brains were so small compared to their huge bodies. Modern science has since debunked this theory, explaining that the structure wasn't a brain at all. This makes Newt's comparisons scientifically shaky for more than one reason. Not only is the original dinosaur idea outdated, but most kaiju in the film have very large heads and therefore wouldn't need a secondary brain in the first place. The moment when Mako slips into her childhood memory of being attacked wasn't created with digital tricks. The transition from the Jaeger cockpit to the Japanese street was filmed entirely on a practical set. And for the scene where young Mako runs through the alley, the crew built the whole environment so that every object, trash, signs, debris, even the puddles, was connected to a single hydraulic system. This meant that whenever the kaiju was supposed to take a step, the entire set shook in perfect unison, making the ground bounce and the water ripple exactly as it would if a massive creature were really approaching. This practical setup gave the scene a grounded, realistic sense of terror that digital effects alone couldn't match. And that wraps up this deep dive into Pacific Rim. If you enjoyed exploring the world behind the Jaegers, the kaiju, and all the incredible creative decisions that brought this universe to life, make sure to hit that thumbs up button. And if you want more fun facts, hidden lore, and behind-the-scenes breakdowns, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss what's coming next. Until next time, thanks for watching, stay sharp, and we'll see you in the next video.